Throughout the entire history of comic books, it seems everyone likes to argue which of their favorite characters would logically beat up the other ones. This is something I actually enjoy and what brought me into this community, but back in the days whenever I used to argue those things in person, things were different, as this was a long time ago, because I'm an ancient being, okay? Comics as a whole had kind of stayed in their own corners, in their own respective multiverses for the most part, especially leading up into the 90s. And at this point in time, there were two major comic book retailers with quite a few indie companies running around. And of course, the ones I'm referring to are Marvel and DC. They had crossed over in Elseworlds and What Ifs, but honestly, never anything truly solid. Heck, most of the comics before the 90s basically treat the characters from Marvel and DC as if they're in the same universe. But in 1966, things changed. And the battle between Marvel versus DC truly began as that individual run began to take hold. It led to even more minor crossovers down the way, and eventually one really event-like crossover, and of course I'm talking about the JLA Avengers run. Since that event, though, things have run kind of dry whenever it comes to major team-ups between Marvel and DC as crossovers. Honestly, between the biggest comic book companies, they're kind of been dead for the last 20 years. But what if I told you it's happening again? Maybe even sooner than you think. What's up, guys? It's me, Lumos Theromax, and today I'm here to discuss all sorts of stuff between Marvel and DC because there's been all sorts of new and old information that's been super interesting. So sit back, like and subscribe, and we're gonna make this bad boy happen. Wow, you're gonna make claims like that there's gonna be a crossover between Marvel and DC? Well, I want proof. After all, I have a scan saying Marvel doesn't even like crossing over with most verses, coming straight from the vice president of Marvel Comics himself, executive editor Tom Brevoort. What you gonna do to that, Lumos? Okay, chill Marvel vs. DC fan 6969. I did come with the facts today, some of which is old information, but we'll come to some more brand new information as time goes on, so make sure you stick around till the end of the video, boys. And although that statement from Tom is pretty solid and came out recently, I want to say last year, well, guess what? Things might have changed. So of all places, where would be a good place for proof for another crossover between Marvel and DC? Well, why not look at both? After all, is it a coincidence that a few months ago that they re-released their Marvel vs. DC title? Surely coincidence, right? But there's more than that, trust me. Let's start off with Marvel, since that specifically is too ambiguous to be solid, right? I'm going to be honest, I couldn't find much on the Marvel side, and to be fair, I'm not as much into Marvel as I am DC, so maybe I just missed something whenever it comes to them. Feel free to type in the comments down low if they have had something super recent that was a crossover. The latest thing I can think of where we had anything even similar to a crossover with those guys, or where they reference DC inside of Marvel whatsoever, was during the Black Winter arc, where the Black Winter rolled up to another reality and its heroes rolled up to fight it, clearly intended to be the Justice League. I mean, look at some of the phrasing here. Blatant references to the Justice League and their reality, or at least some variant of it that somewhere in existence, who knows? So, kind of a cameo, even though it's like super vague. The story was actually really interesting, but that's not really much adding towards our theories here, so let's continue forward. Now, the genuinely real solid evidence comes from DC Comics, as well as from a very solid source of information from within the continuity of DC Comics. You all might have heard this before, so stop me if you have, but you can't because this is already pre-recorded, so get wrecked. I, of course, refer to Doomsday Clock, a massive storyline in issue 12 where Dr. Manhattan, you know, this ultra-powerful cosmic entity that exists everywhere at once, throughout everything in the multiverse, including time. Yeah, this guy makes the argument in just a few pages, so definitely check it out. TLDR, leading up to this moment, Dr. Manhattan's resetting the entire multiverse after nuking most of it, and it's this panel that we want to focus on specifically. On July 10th, a secret crisis begins, throwing Superman into a brawl across the universe with Thor himself, a green behemoth stronger than even Doomsday, who dies protecting Superman from these invaders. Yo, let's take just a few seconds and dissect that line by line. This man claims that in 2030, this is when the event will happen. This is important to note. Secret Crisis, another term used in that little meme there, is directly referring to major cosmic events at Marvel and DC, as all major DC events have Crisis in the name, such as Final Crisis and Infinite Crisis, etc., etc., and most major Marvel stories typically contain secret in them, such as Secret Wars and Secret Invasion. And in this alleged crossover, Superman fights across the entire universe with Thor, who obviously is a known Marvel big boy, but to be fair, Thor's name is copyright free and he's a god, so maybe that's not enough, right? From these invaders, what exactly do they mean by from these invaders? Does this mean that most of Marvel attacks DC, but like Hulk steps up to agree with DC and protects them? Who are these invaders, guys? Who knows? Something interesting, we might come to that later. A green behemoth stronger than Doomsday? Yo, that's clearly in reference to Hulk, okay? Honestly, if you haven't heard of what Hulk's been up to in the modern day, he's an avatar of the one above all / below all right now. He's basically like God's rage. He's kind of on something, so it's not too absurd to say that this is indeed a possibility for the Hulk, in fact. Unfortunately, this is pretty much all we can grab from this scan as he moves on immediately, and this comic book leaves us with the very solid idea that this crossover should be happening July 10th, 2030. So that's pretty cool, but man, that's still like half a decade away. We just hit 2025, boys. How tragic. But what if I told you that's not all the information I come prepped with today? After all, that comic's been out for over half a decade. Everyone knows about the Doomsday Clock memes. Let's push past those even. Maybe it's even sooner. Why? Well, your boy Lumos has the plug for solid information because the Theromax Corps Ring Extranet is always buzzing with the newest DC information, so like and sub to keep yourself informed, or even join the Discord, man. Hit me up about that. So, it isn't very often when you can get bigwigs from Marvel and DC in the same room to answer questions about anything, let alone trying to get them to answer questions about when they're going to do another crossover with one another, and honestly, this is like as gold as it gets, because we have the high-end figures, such as DC Comics Editor-in-Chief Marie Javins, and Marvel Comics Editor-in-Chief C.B. Cebulski, at the same comic book panel at Comics Pro of this year. Why care about these dudes? Well, editors-in-chief are quite the higher-end role at the company, and they help dictate the future of where all the comics go. So anything they say will have been vetted, as anything they say won't be too wild or they'd be in huge trouble with their companies, not to mention NDAs or anything like that from the other company that they could be working with here. So anything being discussed here is definitely a planned thing. I'll quote the relevant information from the interview here. We really enjoyed working with one another, and he's referencing the Marvel vs. DC content that was recently re-released that I mentioned before. And it was then that the Marvel editor asks her, the DC editor, if they are up for a modern crossover with DC, one that's soon. And a roar of cheers could be heard. So he says, yeah, I guess we'll just have to do it since you guys are hyped for it. So, whoop, guess what? We are in fact doing it. This isn't even a question. Yo, he then laters on, wondering, I wonder, could we do it in 2025? This year. Guess what, boys? Marvel and DC are crossing over this year. It's not even a question. Yo, quick edit to all of you guys. This is actually Lumos the editor, because in the middle of actually editing this, I had to switch up this entire video because more information actually came out confirming the things I was talking about. So basically, let me flash this up on screen real quick. We are no longer in Theory Crafting Town. We are in Canon Land. This article actually references the prior event that I was just discussing as a formal announcement of a confirmation that a Marvel vs. DC event is happening in 2025, 100%. Like, this was all definitely 100% planned. The article continues to specify even more details that I wasn't aware of, including the fact that it will be in the form of 2 one-shot sequences in a company-wide crossover with Marvel publishing Marvel/DC and DC publishing DC/Marvel, which will be like the 2 one-shot comics that they're going to be dropping. This is crazy because we still have no idea on what this crossover will actually contend of. But what could it possibly contend of? I don't know. Case closed, right? I mean, I didn't even get to do my whole theory thing. That kind of sucks. I was like leading up to all this stuff and then it just kind of fell apart. Oh wait, can I still do my theory thing? Hold on, we're 12, like what, 11 minutes in? 11 and a half minutes in? Yeah, we can still do a theory thing. Okay, let me see if I can pull some stuff together here. Let me brain really fast. Okay, yo, I think I got something. Yo, if you remember something that I previously told you about the stuff that we kind of glanced over, that Doomsday Clock stuff. Remember that? I was rattling on about all sorts of stuff about that. Remember how I only showed you like one major panel there where Manhattan goes on through all sorts of events that happen in the future? Well, that's not all of them by any means. There's actually one in the prior scan. This specific scan notates that there is a notable event happening in 2025, albeit in the summer. It specifies, Time Masters will be this threat, and they will cause Superman to be revitalized in a crisis unlike one the metaverse has ever seen. Could this actually be this event here? Maybe. I doubt it, honestly. But it does leave things open, if I'm being honest. And it leaves us with one last problem with this whole Dr. Manhattan stuff. Remember the timeline of when he saw Marvel and DC crossing over? He said 2030, didn't he? Shouldn't that ruin this whole theory? Who's to say that we don't just get 2 crossovers? Maybe even one every 5 years. Also an unhinged idea, but it would be one that I would enjoy getting back to for Marvel and DC. A time where their crossovers didn't take 20 years to manifest. But hey, that is just a theory. A Theromax Corps theory. Thanks for cringing. But in all honesty, guys, that's pretty much everything I got for this crossover. I'll cover more stuff on this as time goes on, because I love crossovers between Marvel and DC. Do you guys? Tell me what you think down low. Was any of this relevant? Was any of this new information? I hope you enjoy it. And also, thanks for hanging out with this horrible editing. I lost my last editing, and my last editor app, and so I'm trying out a new one. This one's gonna be weird. Let's find out how it goes. But with no further ado, we'll catch you next time, Lanterns. Later.
Aftermath, you'll join my list of dead after I tear you in half. And I laughed at the thought of them controlling me. I'm the ultimate dragon that spawned everything. I resist and defy.